Hello. Well, turns out that it's Minecraft's 10th anniversary today. So, looking through some old projects, I came across this little Minecraft character template. So, what better way of not celebrating, but acknowledging the 10th anniversary of Minecraft by just doing some Minecraftian boxy stuff. So what we might do is, this is available on Cat's Bits actually, this, where did I put it? Website. It is somewhere. Right, so here we go. How tall is the Minecraft character in Blender? So this is how you can actually make your own. Because of the way that the Minecraft character is set up, it's, well, you can call them 3D pixels. So you can determine the size of your character based on the number of pixels the image that's mapped to it has. I think that's the way that it used to work out. But the character's available on this URL, but I shall drop that in chat after, and or make whatever it is that we do today available. So what we're going to do first, I guess, is just make a simple, this is already made, so what we'll do is remake this, just to go through the process of making a simple character that we can animate. And hopefully it shouldn't take too long. So keep that on screen. So we want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cubes. So we can add our cubes. Add, meshes, cube. Switch the widget. Ooh, that's tiny. How big is that? 2 by 2. So these are our dimensions. Annotation, color. So these are our dimensions. So this is 2 by 2. We want to change that. So that it's 4 by 4 by 12. So we can do this in object mode as opposed to switching into edit mode, because this is a simple character, so we only need to modify the objects. So select your object and just simply type in the dimensions, we want 4 by 4. That gives us, breadth and depth, and then 12 for the height. There is one arm. We want to fix this, which is object, apply, rotation and scale. And what this does is it resets the scale information. So it resets this. What it should read as is, excuse me, 1, 1, 1. But at the moment, because we changed the size of the object, it's modified the scale. And we need to reset that so that it's all 1. So with that object selected, object, apply, and keep an eye on the numbers. All reverts to 1, 1, 1. So before we do anything else, what we can do here is just double check something. Where's the origin point for that? Aha. So what we can do is set this so that the origin point acts as a pivot and replicates this point, which we will eventually put in place when we add an armature. And at the moment it's in the center of the object, and we can adjust that, switch to edit mode, select everything, and then just using the widget handles, hold the control key down, and we can adjust that just to give us a repositioned origin point that now the object will rotate around. So how many of these do we need? Are they the same size as the legs? So let's check. Yes, they are. Interesting. It's been a while since we looked at this file, so we can duplicate that, Shift D, or no, it's object. That gives us a leg. So what we need to check next is what's the rotation on that? The origin, what the origin points do, excuse me, before we've added a skeleton, or before we add a skeleton, what the origin points do, if they are positioned relative to where the object might rotate, before the skeleton is added, what they give us is an idea as to how the object might articulate. so we can get a sense of its animation before we actually do any animating. Right, so next cube is the torso. Super tiny again, and that one needs to be 8 by 4 by 12. So 8, that's its width, by 4, which is the same as the arm's depth, and then 12, same as the arms height-wise. And then a head, so that's 8 by 8 by 8. And then what we can do for the opposite arms is just select the leg and the arms that we have and just duplicate them. Whoops. And we don't have to worry about exact positioning right now. All we're doing is just blocking the shapes out. So next, UV maps. So we have to assign a material. Excuse me. Assign a material. We'll create a new one. So select the object. They don't have a material, so click the new button. Just call that something. And this will have the same image associated with each of these. So we can assign this material to the other objects. And we do that, click the Browse button. And it'll list the material we just created. Blocky. It's assigned it. Again. And of course we can change the color if we want. And then something else that might be helpful, object properties. Give us a shortcut for this annotation thing. So object properties, select your object and enable wire and draw all edges. So these two. And what this does is it shows a wireframe outline around the object, and it makes it slightly more easy to distinguish shapes when everything is the same color, because that looks like it's one big blob of green. So select each in turn and enable wireframes. So now we can see the shapes. Right, next, UV maps. So the way the texture is set up, we've got defined areas, and this gives us a clue as to the way the objects will be unwrapped, because what we're doing, rather than normally what you would do is unwrap the object and then paint the texture or create the texture to fit the object you are that's been unwrapped. We're doing it the other way around, because in this instance the textures have been mapped out already. So each part of the character has a designated area of the texture map already mapped out. And what we're going to do is essentially unwrap each of the objects to fit the requirements that are already laid out by the texture. So what we did there was we changed the layout to make this easier. So we're switching from the general editing view or default to UV maps, UV editing, and this allows us to select the objects as we're working on them and edit the UV map as it lays out. So let's start with the head. Edit mode. And we don't have a UV map for this, so what we can do, just for the sake of getting one, is mesh, UV unwrap, and then just reset. And that'll create a UV map that maps the entire image to one face of the object. And because this is a very simple character, what we can do here is just use the selection tools. So we're doing face select, and that'll allow us to select individual faces or surfaces that we can then edit in the image editor. And this is the front, which will be that one. So we select that, get our UV map, we've got our vertices selectable, just select the whole thing, or select individual vertex. Oh, ensure that as it is snap pixels, and what this does is it, as we move the vertex, it'll snap to the nearest pixel. So we just right click the vertex and press the G key and move it into position. And as you can see on the 3D view, the UV corrects itself. So we need to rotate that. So select all the UVs, shift click, and then press the R key to rotate. Wrong way around. There we go. Perfect. Select another shade, face, surface. Same again. So this is the right side. That also needs to be rotated. So shift right click the vertexes and rotate. And we have them joining perfectly. So next is the left side. that needs rotating. And then top. And bottom. That needs rotating as well. Might even need flipping. So that's Control M, mirror. There it is, Control M. And I think it's the... Nope, that's the wrong axis. There we go. So one thing you want to note, or want to watch out for, zoom right in for this. So the texture's been done in a way that each face is bordered by a what is the equivalent of a 1 by 1 pixel line. Where the texture wraps around the object, the border is 2 pixels across, so the UV sits in the center of those. So 1 pixel is either side of the UV seam. So what you need to make sure of is that your outer edges of surfaces that don't have a I'm going to say continuation, it's not a continuation, but in the same way that there's a 2 pixel line here, there's only a 1 pixel line here because there's nothing to this side of it. So you want to make sure that your UVs align relative to the placement of the image in relation to the UV. So what you want to try and avoid is something along the lines of this. Whoops, why is it not letting me? Oh, there we go. You want to be careful where you put your seams and your UV terminating points relative to the seam on the actual object, because you want a 1 pixel line all the way around the edge of each surface. Which you will only get if you properly position your UV. So with that done, let's carry on with the rest of the character. So we've got the head, legs and arms. Right, so the legs and the arms use the same UV mapping. So what we could have done is select an arm, select everything, unwrap, that gives us the one-to-one mapping. And then do what we did before. So this is the front face, which looks like it needs rotating. So that's that. So that's the outer. And back. So to save some time, just press the S key and scale the thing down. It's a bit quicker to do it that way. And then there's the inside. And the same again, be aware of where you are placing the UV vertices so that you get an even pixel border around each face. Need to rotate this. Hi Dev, if you don't know, just ask a question. What do you not know what's going on? Oh, besides the modelling. So we need to flip that. So one of the things that you want to watch out for when you're using, if you use the shortcut keys for mirroring, and you're mirroring something that is formal in its uniform and its shape, you often can't tell which way the mirror has happened. So it doesn't matter whether you've gone X or Y axes. So always watch what's going on in the 3D view to see how the image readjusts itself. So that's an arm, and again we've followed the same thing, the same rule, if you like, that we were doing before, making sure that we have the UVs snapped to the pixel so that we have a single pixel outline. So next, the leg. Same again. Edit mode. Make sure everything is selected. And then just create a basic UV map, which we now need to map to the legs. So to save some time, what we can do here is select all the sides and move them as a group. So select them all, that's the A key. The A key works in the UV editor as it does in the 3D view. R key, rotate, and then S key, just shrink them down to our approximate size. And that saves us time. So, front. So that's the front. Outer. Back. What we're doing is a simple animated character in the style of MineCraft, because it's MineCraft's 10th anniversary this week, today. Not necessarily related to IMVU, but you could use this in IMVU, although you had to do some adjustments. Whoops. It's the bottom. Can't see the top, so just move the leg out of the way for now. So that was toggling out of edit mode into object mode so we could move the object. And then back into edit mode to continue editing. I have to make sure as well that when you are placing the UVs from one part of the mesh and there's the potential for texture bleed, just pay attention to where the UV edge or seam should be. And allow, well, it's not the space. Tolerance, that's the word. Make sure your tolerances are set properly. Right, so that's one leg. So what we can do with this now... Oh, hang on, we haven't done the outside yet. The inside. Right, so that's the inside. Although that's that looks a bit odd. Hang on, so that's the front. That's the outer. That's the inner. And that's the back. That's interesting. Because, okay, so what we're going to do now, because these are identical, they are using the same image, or the same section of the image. So the legs use this section, and the arms use the other section that's off screen. That section. What we can do is duplicate these objects. So we can shift right click, objects, duplicate objects, and that'll create our duplicates. And just shove them over. And then get rid of these old ones. Oh, that's why. Right, so aha, so hang on then. So let me just double. Okay, so that's weird. That's kind of interesting. Right, so we have to make some adjustments. That's interesting, actually. So what we can do, they should be mirrored, but all we did was basically duplicate it and move them across. So what we can do here is select an object, mirror, is it X? Yeah, X-axis, mirror. We need to set, whoops, do that again. So the tool works. The tool's a bit awkward sometimes. So you select your object, mirror, and then you'll select the axis that you want to mirror across. So in this instance, it's the X global axis. So it'll flip, but it's not finished with the operation yet. It's telling you with the line, the axis line that's appeared, it's telling you that that's the axis along which it's flipped. So to complete the process, you then have to left click. If you right click, it just resets. So what we need to do here, because we've mirrored these, object, apply, and this will turn them inside out. Oh no, it didn't. Or has it? So we can check that. So that's the view properties. Backface culling. Ah, yes, they've turned inside out. So what that does, backface culling, this is how you can check which way around your mesh faces are pointing. So with this enabled, because we've mirrored this and basically reset the mesh, the faces are pointing inwards, because that's the mirror of pointing outwards. Whereas the ones on the other side are pointing outwards. They are in the correct orientation. So what we can do to fix that, edit mode, select everything, and then in the tool shelf, press the T key. Whoops, that is the tool shelf. Flip direction. Do that for the arms. Select everything, flip direction. Right, we have to do some tweaking here because we've flipped the UVs. So this UV is essentially backwards. It needs to be flipped. Well, one way or the other, so either that way or that way, so that the F is on this side of the face instead of this side. And we have to do that to all the surfaces on these objects that we've flipped. So select the face, A key, and then Control M, X, and it will flip it in place, in situ, using a central invisible. So it is flipping the object down an invisible center line. So it's flipping these vertices to the opposite sides. Do that to all the surfaces. Oops. get away with not doing the top or the bottom, but we'll see. Need to do the leg. And again, we might be able to get away with the top, but we have to flip the ones on the other side so that they are mirrored. Because the way that the texture, so we've got two things that we've got to think about when we are mapping objects to a pre-existing image. So not only are we mapping the object itself to the general layout of the UV, so the leg is generally mapped to this section of the map that's predetermined, we're also mapping each face relative to the orientation or the organization, I guess is the... trying to think of the... so that should read legs, but backwards on one side of the mesh, because we're mapping the surfaces relative to the orientation of the UVs as they are predetermined in this section of the map. So because we're mirrored, because they are mirrored, one will read correct, it'll read left to right, but the other, being mirrored, will read right to left. So if there was some detail, some lettering on the eventual character, it may appear inverted or in the wrong place because the orientation, not just the position of the UV, is not correct. Yeah, so that should, let me just flip these inside out so that we can just move these out of the way for the moment. So on the original, hide the skeleton, on the original we can see that the arms are mirrored, so arms, the word arms, reads correctly on one side, it's read left to right, but on the other side it'll read right to left because it's mirrored. And that changes the position of the UV. Not its orientation. It's so on the right which is our left as we're looking at it on screen. The F is on the left hand side, but on mirrored it's on the right hand side because the UV has been flipped. So you have to make sure that you do that, or that you're aware of that when you're mapping, when you're making your UV maps fit something that already exists, particularly if it is using a duplicate. So back to our yeah, that's fine. Now the arm. And then finally we can move on to the torso. Select, reset. And of course watch out for, again, bleed. So you want to make sure that you are aligning your UV seams correctly relative to the edges. Oh, we missed a face. And that's the torso. So let's fix the head. So that's the back of the head that we missed. Right, so those are all the parts. Bit of a slog to do that. So what we can do next is make sure everything's properly aligned to